season 3 of Killer Relationship with Faith Jenkins coming to us this weekend on Oxygen True Crime. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
I mean, there's so many different, versions of this, whether it's romantic or just in friendship. Tell us a little bit about some of the stories that we're going to hear in this season.
Well, we really wanted to choose stories that we think would resonate with our viewers based on the feedback we've heard from our first two seasons. And it's really more of what we had our first two seasons, which is relationships that are built on love and trust. And you have this buildup in the beginning because the family and friends come on the show to talk about the relationships, not only with the victim, but also with the perpetrator, because this is a person who's known to them and in the community. And then you have the buildup to what happens in the end, which is someone dies. So we really want to answer the question of why, because that's what viewers want to know. When you have something that started out so good, how can it in the end end so badly? So we take them through those steps and we venture out now just beyond the spouses and the lovers into other types of relationships. But it's really that foundation of you have somebody who you trusted, who you relied on, you had this relationship with, and then in the end, they turn their back on you and they kill you. What is the reason? What triggers someone to make that ultimate decision?
I mean, because in the season we have a mom, a second grade teacher, a veteran, a DEA agent. I mean, so it's not just, you never know where this is going to come from and what type of relationship is going to happen to.
And that's another reason why I think people are intrigued by the series, because it could be your next door neighbor. We have high school teachers, professors, people from all different walks of life. No one is immune to the fact that someone could potentially snap. So in some cases, you're going to see some red flags. You'll see some patterns. You'll be able to spot, and family and friends will talk about that. But then there are others, like our season premiere, where people just didn't see it coming. And
Yeah.
there's that element of shock. There's that element of surprise. And we open the show with a press conference, and you see family and friends and the community, people crying out because at this time they think the person is missing. Help us find our loved one. And there's all these tears, all this emotion. And you find out in the end, one of the people was the killer at the press conference crying out for help. So it's just the juxtaposition of the love that's seen in the beginning versus the death and the betrayal, and in the end is really incredible, and it takes people through a range of emotions throughout the series.
Let's talk a little bit about what the audience can get out of a show like this, because I don't want it to be just something that they watch and they discuss, but also maybe some actions they can look inwards of themselves, of like, is there a red flag that I'm missing? Is there something that I'm allowing that I don't feel comfortable with? I mean, talk a little bit about maybe that aspect of the show.
That's a great question, because that's one of the things that we want to do. We want to inform people. Yeah. You watch these cases and you want to have an inside look as to how this criminal mind works. This person has now decided to commit the ultimate unimaginable act. How did they get to that point? But there's also the element of, is there something that people should have noticed? Is there something that people can take away from the things that this person was doing? Could this situation have been avoided? So all of those questions come into play. As I mentioned, sometimes there are some flags, and then other times it's a matter of people just being totally shocked. But what I tell people is, you always want to look at the patterns in people's lives. If they are displaying patterns of jealousy, rage, control, disguised as love. Oh, I love you so much. That's why I want to know where you are at all times of the day. That's why I text you 50 times a day. When you look at people's patterns, people will lie about who they are, but their patterns don't lie. You look at their patterns, and then you can really make a decision about not only their history, but you can predict what they'll potentially do in the future as well.
Yeah, I mean, because the dating world is so tough, and sometimes you're looking, you might have gone through a couple of heartaches, or you might just be a trusting person, but sometimes you have those family and friends that are like, don't trust anybody, and someone's that are like, well, just give it a try. Talk a little bit about maybe listening to some of those voices that you've always trusted throughout your life, but sometimes you ignore during relationship times.
because love has a way of blinding you to certain things. Like people see red flags, but they want to see how red the red flags are instead of just taking them for what they're worth. So I always say, if you have people around you that you really love you and you have the history with them and they really care about you, if they notice something and they point something out to you, you should really listen, because a lot of times they'll see things that you can't because you're blinded by the love, you're
Yeah.
blinded by the infatuation. So take a listen. If someone has the courage, because a lot of people don't want to say anything to their loved one because they don't want to disappoint them or they don't want them to turn around and be mad at them. If you see something, speak out to your loved one, have that private conversation and say, hey, I'm just noticing something here. It makes me feel a little uncomfortable and I want to bring it to your attention just in case you haven't noticed it. And then if you're the receiver of that kind of information, take a step back and listen to what your loved one has to say, because if this is a person who's been in your life, consistently been in your life, and they know you. They don't know this other person, but they know you and they love you. They're looking out for your best interests. Take a minute, take a beat, listen to what they have to say.